Breaking news here into CBS Sports HQ, where the Cincinnati Bengals have acquired quarterback Joe Flacco from the Cleveland Browns. That's the latest from our NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. The Bengals have been struggling since Joe Burrow went down with a toe injury, losing 3 straight to fall to 2-3 on the season with Jake Browning at the helm. They are on the road to play the Packers this Sunday afternoon. And with that, we bring in our NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, joining us now. So, Jonathan, with this news, how much does the signing help the Bengals?
Well, it helps them a lot more than where they were yesterday, right, Tiffany? They finally understood what truly and honestly was evident and obvious to the rest of the NFL. They weren't going to be able to stay afloat with Jake Browning as their quarterback. They were really relying on a couple of years ago and how well he played, a winning record there. But when you look at how Jake Browning has played this season, it wasn't good enough. It was not going to help them be competitive by mid-December when they hope that Joe Burrow will be fully recovered and able to play and return from that turf toe injury and subsequent surgery. And so they turned to Joe Flacco, a rare in-season trade for the Cincinnati Bengals. They don't ever really trade for players. And a rare interdivision trade. Rarely do you see this happen and take place within a division. It's taking place now between the Cincinnati Bengals and Cleveland Browns of the AFC North. A rare sort of helping a division rival, unless, of course, the division rival may know something about the quarterback. We see right there Joe Flacco's numbers this season. If you go back to last year, when he was with the Indianapolis Colts, only one quarterback, actually no quarterback has a worse passer rating qualifying than Joe Flacco since the start of last year. He did not play well for the Colts. He has not played well for the Cleveland Browns and ultimately got benched for Dillon Gabriel. So the magic that he had at the end of that 2023 season that helped the Browns make it to the playoffs has not been able to be recreated. And so the Browns saying that they can do without Joe Flacco. Best of luck to you in Cincinnati. They're willing to help out the Bengals in theory, or maybe, of course, they know something about Joe Flacco and his level of play that the Bengals may soon find out.
I do want to get to that. I also want to say I was on the sidelines, and I've been on the sidelines for a couple of Bengals games where Jake Browning has been the quarterback. And coming off of the one where Joe Burrow goes down with that toe injury, this team just had so much confidence in Jake Browning. So it might be saying a lot about what they think about him right now. And then what I want to ask is, how much does this say about the Browns' confidence now in Dillon Gabriel having traded away Joe Flacco?
So we'll start with Cincinnati, where you were at that game with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars should have won that game. When the backup, when the top 5 quarterback of the team goes down and the backup comes in and throws 3 interceptions, the other team always wins that game, right? And ever since then, Jake Browning hasn't been able to do enough. Another couple of interceptions. They play the Broncos the next week. They only muster 3 points. The next week, he throws multiple interceptions again. And so, yes, there was a lot of confidence in Jake Browning. Again, I think it was misplaced. And so now the Bengals are more or less admitting that, turning to Joe Flacco. Now, what does it say about Dillon Gabriel? Well, they had already made the move, the Cleveland Browns had, to Dillon Gabriel ahead of their game against the Minnesota Vikings in London. They were never turning back to Joe Flacco unless there happened to be an unfortunate injury. Once you go to the rookie, you're not really going back to the veteran who's on a 1-year contract, the veteran who does not have a future with the football team. And so they believe enough in Dillon Gabriel. They like what they have in him. The scouting report was he makes good, quick decisions. You can move him out. I think the coaching staff probably should have helped him out a little bit more down the stretch in a winnable game against the Minnesota Vikings. But the Browns do feel comfortable and confident in moving forward with Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders as their 2 quarterbacks in a season where they should have more wins than they do right now, just the one, and sending away Joe Flacco to Cincinnati.
All right, JJ, the trade deadline then is November 4th. So what do you anticipate maybe for these 2 teams or even just the league as a whole?
So I actually had a story earlier this weekend on CBSSports.com about the top quarterback names and how there were no calls on them. Cincinnati had not made a call on a Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson. The Giants haven't fielded any calls for Russell Wilson. People keep talking about Jameis Winston. He's on a 2-year contract with the Giants. I think the Giants want to keep Jameis Winston. They'd be willing to part with Russell Wilson if someone is interested in him. Kirk Cousins is going to be a difficult name to move because of his $27.5 million contract this year. A lot of teams, first of all, they can't take that on. Most teams don't want to take it on. And then how much would the Atlanta Falcons want to eat of that? You look at the Joe Flacco deal. It's a pick swap 5 and 6. But also, Joe Flacco just has about $800,000 in remaining base salary. That is going to be what the Cincinnati Bengals wind up paying for the rest of this season. One other name, Anthony Richardson. Colts have no interest in dealing him. I've heard a couple other names out there. What would the San Francisco 49ers do? Perhaps once Brock Purdy is healthy. They have Mac Jones. Mac Jones isn't going anywhere. 3-0 as the backup to become the starter on a 2-year contract with the San Francisco 49ers. That's not going to happen. So this was a much needed trade for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns could do it because they don't need Joe Flacco anymore. They've moved on from Joe Flacco. I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot more trades right now, right? We're still 4+ weeks away from the trade deadline. Things will pick up probably 2 weeks or so from now.
After today, we are certainly going to be looking forward to see what happens.
You might have some coaching points on both the winning and losing side of this one, but Jacksonville gets it done. Not pretty in moments. The game management begs question, but how did the Jags pull this off, Mac?
Well, playing smarter, cleaner football than the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at the penalty ratio. I mean, Kansas City had 13 penalties for 109 yards. Jacksonville was nowhere close to having double-digit penalties. That always will put you in a position to win ball games. And just the opportunistic play. During the pregame show, if you guys didn't watch, you missed a treat. We kind of gave you the rundown of what you should expect to see. Following the Jacksonville Jaguars defensively the entire season, they have been consistent in doing what? Creating turnovers, punching Wilson away, stealing Wilson from the opposing team, and being able to give it to their offense. That was a defining play by arguably the defensive player of the year in the first month of the season, and Devin Lloyd, playing the eyes of Pat Mahomes, creating a turnover, not just creating a turnover inside the red zone area, but putting points on the scoreboard for his team. That was a defining moment. It was basically a 14-point swing in terms of where the game was.
Of the mixtape era. So it was about party starting. Who's going to start the party? Devin Lloyd started the party for this Jaguars football team because he knew the offense was having its issues in trying to find some consistency to put the ball in the end zone. So, you know what? I'm not just going to go down. I'm not just going to go out of bounds. I'm going to bring this thing all the way back for a touchdown. And what I love about this game for Jacksonville, it shows you they can win ugly. Because normally when teams that we question whether or not are they good or not, they have to win when everything goes their way. This was an ugly ball game when it shows you that Jacksonville can win these ugly games because everything said, well, this is the same old Jags. These are the same old Chiefs. They're going to come back and win this ball game. Now they went back down the field, found some big plays from Trevor Lawrence, who made 2 great throws on that final drive, and then they scored the game-winning touchdown when he fell down, got back up, no timeouts, and found a way to get to the end zone. So this was an ugly win for Jacksonville, but that's a good thing for the Jags because you need to see that from
when they're there right in front of his face. How do you marry those two things?
You got to get it to become from the classroom to the practical, sense in terms of, because this is all sports psychology where we've seen guys. I always bring up the Nick Anderson example where great shooter, but missed those free throws in the finals when you needed him to make those free throws. He makes those free throws 9 times out of 10 with his eyes closed, but in that high leverage moment, he didn't. And we saw Kansas City in this ball game make those plays consistently in